Jennifer Lawrence's hands started trembling as the studio fell silent. The world-famous actress looked helplessly at Steve Harvey in front of the cameras. The moment she said, "I can't do this," even America's most powerful host broke down in tears. No one was prepared for such a breakdown. The Family Feud studio buzzed with its usual electric energy on that Thursday afternoon in Atlanta. Golden lights illuminated the iconic blue and orange set, while 200 eager audience members filled the bleachers, many clutching homemade signs and wearing Jennifer Lawrence t-shirts. The familiar theme music echoed through the soundstage as 5 cameras positioned themselves strategically around the set for what everyone expected to be another entertaining celebrity episode. Production assistants scurried between stations, adjusting lighting rigs and checking audio levels. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation. Jennifer Lawrence sat in the front row of the audience section, fidgeting with her wedding ring. She wore a simple white blouse and dark jeans, her blonde hair pulled back in a casual ponytail. To the casual observer, she looked relaxed, maybe even bored, but beneath the surface her heart was already racing. The familiar weight of performance anxiety pressed against her chest like a stone. Her family occupied the seats around her, creating a small island of familiar faces in the sea of strangers. Her mother Karen, a warm woman with Jennifer's same expressive eyes, Father Gary, a grounding presence who still wore his contractor's work boots, despite the formal occasion, and brothers Ben and Blaine had flown in from Kentucky specifically for this taping. Ben, her older brother, worked as a firefighter and kept cracking jokes to lighten the mood. Blaine, the youngest, was scrolling through his phone, showing family members social media posts about Jennifer's appearance. They were genuinely excited, chatting and laughing as they waited for their moment on stage, completely unaware of the storm brewing inside Jennifer's mind. For them, this was a fun family adventure, a chance to see the entertainment industry from the inside. For Jennifer, it was becoming a nightmare she couldn't escape. Steve Harvey bounded onto the stage with his signature energy, wearing an impeccably tailored charcoal gray suit. His mustache was perfectly groomed, his smile infectious as always. The audience erupted in applause, and Steve worked the crowd like the seasoned professional he was, cracking jokes about married life and family dynamics that had the audience roaring with laughter. All right, Steve said, settling the crowd down with his hands. "Today we got something special for y'all. We got Academy Award winner Jennifer Lawrence and her beautiful family here to play some Family Feud." The audience went wild. Jennifer forced a smile and waved from her seat, but her publicist sitting beside her noticed something was off. Jennifer's breathing was becoming shallow and rapid. Her hands were clenched tightly in her lap. "You okay?" her publicist whispered. Jennifer nodded quickly, not trusting her voice. She had dealt with anxiety attacks before, but never in such a public setting. The cameras, the lights, the expectant faces of 200 strangers all felt overwhelming. She closed her eyes and tried to use the breathing techniques her therapist had taught her. The Lawrence family was introduced to thunderous applause. As they walked onto the stage, Jennifer felt like she was moving underwater. Everything seemed distant and surreal. The studio lights were brighter than she remembered from rehearsal. The audience seemed louder. Her family members took their positions at the podium, all smiles and excitement. Steve approached with his characteristic warmth. "Miss Jennifer Lawrence, how you doing, sweetheart?" "I'm good," Jennifer replied, her voice sounding strained even to her own ears. Steve's experienced eye caught something in her demeanor. In his decades of hosting, he had learned to read people quickly. Jennifer's smile didn't reach her eyes, and there was a tension in her shoulders that spoke of barely controlled panic. The game began normally enough, with the familiar ding of the buzzer and the shuffle of index cards in Steve's hands. The Lawrence family faced off against the Rodriguez family from Texas, a boisterous group of 5 who had driven 12 hours to be there. The first few rounds went smoothly, with Jennifer's brothers providing most of the answers while she stood silently at the podium, gripping the metal surface so tightly her knuckles were white. She managed to nod and smile at appropriate moments, but inside she was fighting a losing battle against mounting panic. Every laugh from the audience felt too loud. Every camera movement in her peripheral vision felt intrusive. She tried to focus on breathing and staying present, counting backwards from 100 like her therapist had taught her. But the familiar techniques weren't working in this overwhelming environment. During a commercial break, Jennifer's mother approached her, Honey, you look pale. Are you feeling all right? I'm fine, Mom, Jennifer lied. Just tired. But she wasn't fine. The familiar symptoms of a panic attack were building like a storm in her chest. Her heart was pounding so hard she was sure the microphones would pick it up. Sweat beaded on her forehead despite the studio's air conditioning. Her hands were trembling slightly, and she kept clenching and unclenching her fists to try to stop it. The game resumed, and the Lawrence family found themselves trailing slightly going into the fast money round. Jennifer had been selected to play the lightning round, a decision made during the commercial break when she was still feeling relatively stable. Steve approached her with the confidence of a man who had hosted over 3,000 episodes of the show. All right, Jennifer, you ready for fast money? Jennifer nodded, but her mouth felt dry as cotton. The studio audience leaned forward in anticipation. This was the moment they had all been waiting for, to see America's sweetheart in action under pressure. Remember, Steve said, I need you to give me the first answer that comes to your mind. Don't overthink it. You got 20 seconds for 5 questions. Your family is counting on you. Those last words hit Jennifer like a physical blow. The pressure, the expectation, the hundreds of eyes watching her every move, it all crashed down at once. Her breathing became even more labored. The studio lights seemed to pulse and blur. She could hear her heartbeat in her ears, drowning out everything else. Here we go, Steve announced to the audience. Playing for $20,000, Jennifer Lawrence. The first question appeared on the board. Name something people do to relax. Jennifer stared at the words, but they seemed to swim and shift on the screen. Her mind went completely blank. The seconds ticked by in painful silence. She could feel hundreds of eyes boring into her, waiting for her response. She stammered, her voice barely audible. Steve noticed her distress immediately. Take your time, sweetheart. What's something people do to relax? But Jennifer couldn't form words. The panic was taking over completely now. Her hands were visibly shaking, her breathing rapid and shallow. She looked around the studio with wide, frightened eyes, like a trapped animal searching for an escape route. I can't, she whispered into the microphone. I can't do this. The studio fell into an uncomfortable silence. The audience didn't know how to react. Some whispered among themselves, others just stared in confusion. The Lawrence family watched from their podium with growing concern. Steve Harvey, who had seen everything in his decades of television, from contestants fainting to marriage proposals gone wrong, recognized a panic attack when he saw one. His own struggles with anxiety earlier in his career had taught him the signs. The rapid breathing, the wide-eyed look of desperation, the way someone's whole body seemed to contract inward as if trying to disappear. Without hesitation, he walked away from his host position and approached Jennifer at the buzzer podium, his television persona completely dropping away. Hey, he said softly, his voice stripped of all performance and entertainment value. Look at me, Jennifer, just look at me. Jennifer's eyes found his, and she saw nothing but kindness and understanding there. No judgment, no frustration about the ruined game show moment, just genuine human compassion. I can't breathe, she gasped, her hand clutching at her chest. I can't. Everyone's watching. Steve immediately signaled to the production booth. Cut the cameras, he called out. Everybody take 5 minutes. But the cameras kept rolling. The producers knew they were witnessing something unprecedented and important. This wasn't just television anymore. It was a real human moment that deserved to be documented. Steve gently took Jennifer's arm and guided her away from the podium to the center of the stage. Nobody's watching anything right now, except a friend helping a friend, he said. That's all this is. He turned to the audience, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had commanded stages for 4 decades. Y'all give us some space here. All right, Miss Lawrence is having a hard moment, and we're gonna take care of her. The audience immediately quieted, many nodding in understanding. Several people in the front row had tears in their eyes, moved by the raw vulnerability they were witnessing. Steve knelt down slightly to meet Jennifer at eye level. Tell me what you need right now, he said. Not what the show needs. Not what the audience wants. What do you need? I need to disappear, Jennifer whispered, tears streaming down her face. I'm supposed to be strong. I'm supposed to be funny and charming and I can't even answer a simple question about relaxation. Baby girl, Steve said gently. You are strong. You think weak people get up in front of cameras every day for 15 years? You think weak people win Academy Awards? You think weak people admit when they're struggling? He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a handkerchief, offering it to her. This anxiety you're feeling, it don't make you weak. It makes you human. And sometimes being human is the strongest thing you can be. Jennifer took the handkerchief and wiped her eyes. Everyone expects me to be Jennifer Lawrence all the time, she said, her voice cracking with exhaustion. The girl who falls down at award shows and says the wrong thing and makes everyone laugh. The quirky, relatable celebrity who eats pizza at fancy events and photobombs people on red carpets. But I'm tired of being a character. I'm tired of performing every moment of my life. Sometimes I just want to be Jen from Kentucky who gets nervous and makes mistakes and doesn't always have a witty comeback ready. Steve nodded with deep understanding. I know exactly what you mean. You spend so much time being what people expect that you forget who you really are underneath it all. He looked out at the Lawrence family, who were watching with concern and love. Your family didn't come here to see Jennifer Lawrence the movie star, he said. They came here to spend time with their daughter, their sister. They love you for who you are when the cameras ain't rolling. Jennifer followed his gaze to her family. Her mother had tears in her eyes, not of embarrassment, but of empathy for her daughter's pain. Her father looked like he wanted to rush over and protect her from the world. Her brothers were watching with the kind of protective love that only siblings understand. They see me struggle at home, Jennifer said quietly. But I thought I could hold it together for an hour on television. I thought I was stronger than this. Strength ain't about holding it together all the time, Steve replied. Strength is about knowing when to ask for help. Strength is about being honest about your struggles. Strength is about showing people that it's okay not to be okay. Steve stood up and addressed the studio audience directly. Y'all just witnessed something beautiful, he said. You witnessed someone brave enough to be vulnerable. Someone successful enough to have every reason to hide her struggles, but honest enough to show them anyway. He turned back to Jennifer. You want to know something? I've struggled with anxiety my whole career. Every time I walk out on this stage, there's a part of me that's terrified I'm going to say the wrong thing, forget my lines, disappoint people. The difference is, I've learned to use that fear as fuel instead of letting it stop me. Jennifer looked up at him with surprise. You get anxious? But you always seem so confident. Steve laughed, a genuine sound that carried no trace of his television persona. Baby, confidence and anxiety can live in the same person. I'm confident in my abilities, but I'm also scared of failing every single day. The trick is not letting the fear make your decisions for you. He gestured to the cameras that were still recording. Right now, you got a choice. You can let this panic attack define this moment, or you can let your response to it define this moment. You can show every person watching this who struggles with anxiety that it's possible to face your fears and keep going. Jennifer took a deep breath, the first full breath she'd been able to take since stepping onto the stage. What if I mess up the questions? What if I freeze again? Then you freeze again, Steve said with a shrug. And we'll deal with that too. But you won't know what you're capable of unless you try. And I'll be right here with you every step of the way. Steve called over to the Lawrence family. Y'all come on over here. Your daughter needs her family right now. Jennifer's parents and brothers rushed over, surrounding her with love and support. Her mother pulled her into a tight hug. We're so proud of you, Karen whispered in her daughter's ear. Not for your movies or your awards, but for being brave enough to show people that you're human. Gary Lawrence put his hand on his daughter's shoulder. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do, sweetheart. We can leave right now if that's what you need. Jennifer looked around at her family, then at Steve, then at the audience that was watching with compassion rather than judgment. For the first time in years, she felt like she could breathe freely. I want to try again, she said, but I need everyone to know that I might not be perfect. I might stumble. I might not give the best answers. Steve smiled, the first genuine smile he'd had all day. Perfect is boring anyway. Real is what people need to see. He addressed the audience one more time. Y'all just became witnesses to something special. You're about to watch someone face their fears head on. That's the kind of courage that changes the world. Jennifer walked back to the Fast Money podium, her family cheering her on from the sidelines. Steve took his position, but this time his demeanor was different. Less showman, more supporter. "You ready?" he asked gently. "As ready as I'll ever be," Jennifer replied. And for the first time all day, she meant it. The questions began again, and this time Jennifer answered each one with honesty rather than trying to be clever or entertaining. Her responses weren't always the most popular answers on the board, but they were genuine. The audience cheered for every single answer, not because they were perfect, but because they represented courage in action. When the final buzzer sounded, Jennifer had scored enough points for her family to win the tournament, but the money seemed secondary to everyone in the studio. What they had witnessed was far more valuable than any cash prize. Steve walked over to Jennifer and pulled her into a hug that lasted longer than any television hug should. "You just taught every person in this room, and everyone who's gonna watch this at home, that it's okay to struggle," he said. "You just gave permission to millions of people to be human." As the show wrapped up, Jennifer felt something she hadn't experienced in years: authentic pride in herself. Not for her performance, but for her willingness to be real when it would have been easier to hide. In the months that followed, the episode became one of the most talked about in Family Feud history. Mental health organizations reached out to thank Jennifer for her openness. Fans shared their own stories of anxiety and panic attacks, crediting her vulnerability with helping them seek treatment. Talk shows invited her to discuss the experience, but she was selective about which platforms truly understood the message she wanted to convey. Not because of celebrity star power or funny answers, but because it showed what happened when pretense fell away and genuine human connection took its place. The episode was studied in psychology courses as an example of public vulnerability done right, and referenced in countless articles about mental health awareness in the entertainment industry. Jennifer would later say that her panic attack on Family Feud was one of the most important moments of her career. It reminded her that vulnerability was not a weakness to be hidden, but a strength to be shared. And it showed her that sometimes the most powerful thing an entertainer can do is stop entertaining and start being human. The episode aired 6 weeks later, unedited and complete with Jennifer's panic attack and recovery. It broke viewership records and sparked countless conversations about mental health, anxiety, and the pressure placed on public figures to be perfect at all times. But for Jennifer Lawrence, the real victory wasn't in the ratings or the conversations. It was in the moment she chose to be honest about her struggles and discovered that she was still loved, still valued, still enough exactly as she was.